Okay, seems we're gone live. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today's webinar. Today we're gonna dive in QA automation and discuss our topic. Our topic is test automation in agile development, how to avoid common mistakes and find solutions. But before we start, let's check our connection. Please leave your pluses into question section if all is okay. And while we will wait for a feedback, please note that you could use this section to add your questions. We'll answer them at the end of our meeting. Also, you could share your experience related to discussed questions to get us know what worries you the most. At the moment, we see almost 70 of people who are listening to us, and we really appreciate to every one of you, and I hope we will spend this time with very useful experience, and we're happy to be with you. Okay. Let's see our question section. In our question section, we see that everything is okay. Great. Once again, welcome to a webinar. And let me introduce our team, which will be working over this webinar. First of all, I'm happy to introduce my partner, Petar Valkanov. Petar has lots of experience in quality assurance and IT, and now he holds the position of CTO in Quality House. Petar, would you like to greet our listeners?
Hello everyone, I'm very excited to be here and have a chance to share some useful tips I learned over the years with you. I hope this can improve your automation projects, and I hope you all learn something new that can be helpful in the future.
Many thanks, Petar, many thanks. I'm also very excited for the possibility of being here. I will be your second lecturer on the webinar. My name is Yuriy Lukomskiy. I'm working on position of QA automation engineer in QATestLab. I worked on all kinds of providing to our clients automation services, and currently I specialize in mobile application testing. Okay, so now we know about each other. Let's see what will be on our meet. You can see our main topics and one question which will be brief. It will be related to mistakes and the ways of how to solve these mistakes. And the main idea which lays behind this webinar, which we thought with Petar, is to give you answers on the main questions related to automation in agile projects. We will discuss important aspects, common mistakes and some tips, how to avoid mistakes in such complicated process. This information will be useful for the beginners and professionals in fields, and also will be interesting for the people who organize the process in their teams, managers and other stuff. We know that there are many problems which are related with quality assurance processes in agile teams. So we try to provide our ideas and our experience in this presentation and material. And the last organizational moment before we start, this recording will be shared between all the registrants within a couple of days. So if you miss something, it's not a problem, you'll receive this record. Okay, let's move to our topic. And the first point is when and how to plan automation. Would you like to start, Petar?
No problem. There are many pros and cons to including test automation in your software project. However, once you've decided to commit to it, there are several factors you must have in mind to start the process. One of the most important ones is planning. Automation should be planned from the very beginning, and integrating an automation process into a project costs time but provides long-term benefits, such as freeing up QA engineers from repetitive regression runs and creating extensive reports. However, in an agile project, time is the most important resources, and the client wants a working program and doesn't care how it's tested. With short sprints and an ever-growing product backlog, you don't always have time to automate and later execute your test. Therefore, it is best to have a balance between manual and automatic testing, so that the deliverable at the end of the sprint is thoroughly tested and no major bugs get through. It's best to start automating early while the main system is still in development. This can help by addressing certain automation issues to the devs and making the software more testable. In addition, if you develop a test framework early, it's easier to just add new cases with new functionalities and keep up with all the features. Yuriy, would you like to add something?
You bet, Petar. I agree that all processes should be planned as soon as possible. It's very sad to discuss with customers testing when the project is already on air for some months and even years. We had such situation. On a planning stage, testing is often understated. Many times I've heard such position. Why do we need to use such efforts to have, if you have great developers, great processes and others in? This thought is destructive and leads to big failures in the product. All testing processes are very important of making product reliable. So if you think that you don't need testing, you possibly waste your time and resources, and you don't need to work over project at all. And in iterative development processes, the testing becomes more and more important. In every iteration, we have to check all functionalities in a product, and the quality of checks raised from iteration to iteration. And this is why automation was invented for such cases. So agile processes and automation are tightly related. The most important moment in the planning in agile processes is to select the moment when we need to start implementation. Why it's so severe? Because to make really great tests, which will save much effort, many preconditions should be done. Test cases should be created, technologies should be selected, and most important, the test application should have a stable core. You could think, does it mean that automation QA shouldn't connect to a project before it created and has a stable core? And my answer is absolutely no, because on the first steps, there is no product to be automated. We're only thinking about it. But other activities could and should be performed. Automation QA developer should create test framework, investigate documentation, create test cases, discuss with developers app architecture to grant greater testability. On these steps, quality assurance engineer is a good person to be involved in static testing as a member of inspections. It is worth to spend some time on test cases. It's a very bad idea to use manual test cases for an automation. During planning, the structure of future test cases should be defined. As an example, we use special tags for such cases. Special structure is adapted for automation and brings us possibility to separate these test cases from the scope. All this brings great effort in agile teams. Let's move to the next question. Petar, which technologies we need to use? Please share your position with us.
Well, I think there is no universal solution to each automation challenge. The best approach is to use something you are most familiar with. Just keep in mind that some stacks are not well integrated, so sometimes you should try something new in order to avoid integration issues in the future. For example, on one project, we started automating in Java, where the project code was in Azure DevOps and C#. Writing all the automation test cases was easy, but integrating them as part of the continuous integration process was a nightmare. In hindsight, if we started with C# from the beginning, we would have saved more time. Another thing to have in mind is the budget. It's always compelling to go for an open source free solution, but that will not always be the correct way. Keep in mind that your work time is also in the budget, and if you spend months trying to configure or integrate a free tool rather than a couple of hours to use a paid one, then the numbers will be in the favor of the second technology. Yuriy, what do you consider when selecting test technologies?
Yeah, Petar, I think that technologies are very important element of automation, and we work with it every day. So it's a very important question for gaining success in automation projects. The technologies that we use should be based on a huge number of criteria, but the main one which we are considering when planning automation and working on it is what the product is. The product itself reduces the range of what we can use. In fact, if we know for sure what kind of product we deal with, we will have a small number of technologies that really suit us. I agree with Petar that some instrument defines the language to use. There are a widespread opinion that the good practice to write tests in the same language that the application is written. But in fact, this could be any language which is supported by a framework. And even more, if you have a simple app, there is no problem to select the language. It's better to use the language which is used by your project. But what you could do when many platforms should be tested in one project. An example, my current project has 3 Android applications, 2 iOS applications, and web services. Additionally, we have a bunch of API tests. So we have PHP, JavaScript, Java, Kotlin, C Objective, Swift in one place. So which language we could select? We had 2 possibilities in such case. The first one is to split all elements to suitable languages and find separate developers for them, or select only one. We selected only one. The second way, we choose in Java to cover all usages for our framework, and this idea was very successful. All these technologies and all these application and elements could be tested within one language, and it's really comfortable. We reuse many of methods, and it brought us very handle instrument to work with. When you choose test technologies, you need to rely on how long technology exists, how it's supported, and how much it costs in the short or long term. And the main aspect, who in your team has experience in the technology. It's very important to be sure that in the case of emergency, we could find someone in our team to handle situation. That's my points, which I want to describe in this element better. Let's move to the next question. How do you maintain automation frameworks?
Well, I think in an Agile project, the requirements change constantly, and so should automation framework. Each new update to the software logic or user interface should be investigated and integrated into the test cases. Also, test suites should be checked regularly for missing or unnecessary tests. If you forget to or ignore maintaining your automation framework, there are several issues that could appear. Firstly, you might encounter the so-called pesticide paradox. In this scenario, the framework fails to catch any new bugs because of the program under test are the same, but all other code around it might have other issues that don't get caught. Secondly, your test suites may take up lots of unnecessary time to execute due to unoptimized or irrelevant tests. Lastly, you may get false negative results for test executions where some requirements have changed, but the automation code hasn't. And what do you think, Yuriy?
Thanks, Petar. I think the maintenance of a framework begins from a more important stage, in my opinion, from determining what is included in the framework at all stages of creation, what technologies we selected, which will be used and which may be needed for us in future. Logically, any test framework consists of a base element, which mostly is based on third-party elements. It's the frameworks which we add in our project, and our test code. One typical problem which happens quite often is when automation quality assurance engineer wants to put in a base project many different frameworks, especially beginners make such problem, and having some tools with a similar feature and this makes the code access. From a base project side, it's very important not to add an excessive number of different tools during the creation. Adding, removing the technologies from framework in the future can cause a lot of problems in the working product. That's why on planning, we need to think broad and create a base part according to current and future needs. The framework is constantly being updated. Its components require new versions and to fix the issues and provide you new possibilities. So that second point for the base project, if everything works good, no need for an update. You don't need to add updates just for updates, because on my practice, I saw many cases when something was broken after this, and we don't know what to do because one framework relies to other framework, and it could lead to many problems, and some of them unexpected. We don't understand that it could be related to this element. So the next thing which I want to mention here, please not use the hype tools. You must be absolutely sure that it will be supported for a long period of time. It has great community that allows you to solve problems that you 100% will have in future. And now let's move to the second part. We talk about third-party elements and base project. Let's talk about our code, our side. The test product intends to changes. In Agile projects, usage of continuous integration is mandatory. We need to track results after any change. But even if we didn't make any changes in application, tests should be run regularly. Why it's so important? Because there is issues which could happen due to fragile infrastructure, time zones, data inconsistency, or so on. Capturing such issues is very severe for reliability for our product. On a maintenance level, it's a good practice to use behavior-driven tests and usage of patterns such as page objects and so on. This will save you much of your efforts. And the worst thing could happen when the tests aren't ready to be executed when the project requires them. Version control should be a part of the work. Sometimes it's better to run the test with known issues in a test logic than launch experimental round with hot fixes. You need to be 100% sure that your code could show result. And sometimes the times matters and you don't have the possibility to change anything. That was my point about maintenance, but there are many other activities which automation QA could perform, but should he perform these activities? Let's move to our last point, and Petar, could you share your position about this question?
Thank you, Yuri. The next point is what should and what shouldn't an automation QA do. I think an automation QA should focus on writing test scripts, of course. However, I would also advise running some manual tests from time to time, because it's good to have a broader overview on the project and not just at the automation side. In another Agile project, there is often a need to concentrate testing effort on a specific feature. In this case, an automation QA can be reassigned to help with manual tests of features not automated yet. And if you're not well acquainted with the program, your efficiency will be low and the overall testing might get delayed because of that. Something to avoid is meddling in the main source code of the project. As an automation QA engineer, you often have access to the same resources as the devs. And it can be helpful to look at the program code and understand it better. However, making changes can be damaging. Unless you strictly follow the dev's code review process and all their coding conventions, I would advise you to stick to your own code in the automation framework, which should be designed to work regardless of what's under the hood. Yuri, would you like to share your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, of course, sure. The main question of this element of this topic is related to what QA processes happen on a project and what problem should automation create to solve. The main aim of automation in agile processes is to provide fast and repeated iteration during every release or change. It's the main aim. So if specialist works in other fields, main work could suffer from this. What activities I want to touch in my speech? There are three aspects from all which could happen, and I've chosen its bug flow, its manual tests, and working over specifications. I will start from a bugs workflow. I strongly recommend test automation kit to participate in the issues which were found during automation. When you found the issue, not send the issue to a manual team and add it into bug tracking system by yourself. Add it, control, fixing, and verify that the fix is done. This will allow you to be in touch with the recent changes and save the time on maintenance. On the other hand, you should avoid working over issues which weren't created by you. In most cases, they don't come from regression workflow and take much time to get acknowledged and checked. So you will spend the time, try to work over such cases only if you have big priority for these cases or you have no other important task which you could perform. According to the manual tasks, I recommend you to take them only during project investigation to see realization of requirements in the real life. In all other cases, this will optimize your concentration and reduce efficiency. When you create test cases or implement new test cases, there will be inconsistencies between product and requirements. Automation quality assurance engineer should handle this situation, provide feedback to a team about such cases. It's very important, and I think the QA, any QA manual or automation should initiate such questions and create clear workflow for cases when we need to specify something in specifications. Very important for project stability. As an example, yesterday I provided 5 cases where we could improve usability of our project and the cases where we have the issues with inconsistency with the requirements. And I already received the feedback from project manager, and all of them will be added in our product, and this will lead to better usability and clearness of the project. So this all I wanted to discuss in the main points here. Of course, we have chosen the most important elements for automation success. The number of possibilities tends to infinity, you know this. That's why we are learning every day, and watching this webinar can speak with you and waiting for your questions. Don't forget to send them to us. Now let's move to most interesting part. It's the common mistakes in automation in agile projects and how to solve such problems. Petar, share us your points.
Sure. I've done many of these mistakes myself, so it's common. I agree that they're very common, and hopefully we can all learn from our mistakes and improve them. The first issue which many people face is that they focus on UI, on the user interface only. For what people, automation means just Selenium, Cypress, or any other similar automation tool. However, if you focus only on the user interface during testing, you can miss all sorts of bugs related to backend, performance, and data management. The solution I found here is just to don't ignore the other levels of testing, like backend and database. When you test on all levels, it's easier to catch bugs and to figure out where the problem lies, and it will be easier for it to get fixed. The second issue I wanted to mention is setting up test data with the UI. This includes creating users and files as part of the test case, and it can cost a lot of execution time. Also, if the tests are executed often and you don't handle deleting test data properly, it can lead to your system being filled with test users, for example. The solution is to have this data ready before the test. Create your test users or other runtime objects only while you write the test. This can save a lot of execution time and lead to more robust tests. The third issue we faced is so-called copy pasta. It's often in all levels of coding, not just test automation. Copying and paste test cases when they are similar can be useful, but can lead to many mistakes and code redundancy. The solution here I think should reuse code, of course, but define it only once, using the principles of object-oriented programming like inheritance and polymorphism can help reduce code copying and avoid copying mistakes. The fourth issue is not using the correct tools. As discussed earlier in the presentation, if you don't plan ahead, this could happen. Not using the correct version of tools or a completely different tool that is not adjusted to your system can cause major integration issues. The solution here is to select the automation tools before the project begins. Prototype a sample test run, for example, and use it with the most basic test cases, so you know for sure that all other test cases will work. And another issue we face, and one of the questions has asked is what about starting late? This can be an issue because the time you spend writing the code might not be worth the effort. For example, at the time, all previous manual tests could have caught most of the issues, and the automation framework you write after that would do nothing. The solution is to plan and automate as soon as possible. And the earlier the automation framework is developed, the sooner it will be paying itself off. If you are already late and still have to make a framework, I would suggest automating just the most common tests to make a sanity suit and avoid going into finer details. Another issue we face is no common practices. If you have a large automation team, this can lead to a lot of misunderstandings and later refactoring. The solution, which can cost a little bit of initial time, is to set up the common practices beforehand. This can save a lot of time on code reviews and code refactoring. The issue I would like to talk about is trying to automate everything. This can cost a lot of man hours and is basically impossible. The solution is during planning to define the automation scope based on what is reasonable and what is cost efficient. If you don't need to automate everything, just the most useful parts, and no need to spend time on super complex and low priority tests. Those were the points I wanted to mention. Yuriy, could you add yours?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Petar. I'd like to add some additional points, of course, and they will be on our presentation. And the first point which you could see is automating functionality which is still being developed. This is a really frequent problem, and we met with it. When automation case sees the new elements in the application, he could see broken things or something like this. And what's the first idea here is, of course, update the code and handle new elements, pop-ups, and so on. But the element or issue could be only a part of developing of an element, and possibly updating will be a waste of time here. The solution depends on project success. And first of all, you should avoid implementing new functionalities, especially if they out of a main scope. I'm trying to contact the project manager or dev to get to know if this is a final realization. Additionally, during works over the project, devs could ask you to test some thing on dev version of application. You could see many of new issues and fails during execution, but before you change anything in your code, make analysis and find exactly what went wrong. Report only the issues which aren't related to the changes in the code. The next point which I want to mention is overusing of structural selectors. Structural selectors such as XPath or iOS class chain are a very sweet tool for beginners. They could be taken directly from the web page application, and they generate it automatically in many cases. And even if you are using mobile applications, the latest version of Appium provides you better version of iOS class chain selectors. There wasn't before, and so if you're a mobile tester, please update to a beta. It's really good. There are many functionalities which were missed in previous version. It's version 1.18.0, and we're waiting for a stable version. But why this issue? Why is this issue overusing of structural selectors? The main issue is frailty, speed, and readability. You can read about this, but there are some cases where it's hard to avoid these selectors. They automate to navigate between parent elements and children and could provide you the list which is unique. You cannot make it with any other selectors. My recommendation regarding to structural selector: use them only in the case when you 100% sure that it's the only way to use them. For example, if you will use the latest Appium version, you will see there are the timings, and using of XPath regarding IDs is 10 times slower. You will lose much time. It will lead to many problems. And this could, the naming of such elements could lead to fatal things in maintainability, because when you see XPath with long naming, it's hard to sometimes to understand what exactly element is. So it's better not to overuse it, except the situation when it's need for navigation or something like this. In all other cases, you should use unique selectors for the elements, and also your test strategy should be very flexible. Avoid the usage of the same selector for different cases. Try to be flexible, agile, as our topic of our meet. Okay, and let's move to the next point. The next point is making the code too complex. During work over the test, we want to make our code laconic and short. This is very good practice, but in some cases it could lead to maintainability issues. From one side, in the case the person works over your code, it will be hard to understand your solutions. From other side, many specific and short methods could have performance issues. So which solutions we could present here? The first solution, which comes with experience, don't forget to write a documentation. If the part of the code uses rare solutions, add information why it was added and what it brings, why such way was chosen for your test, and in many cases it will save much time in future. Because as an example, in my project I had the code which was written somewhere in Stack Overflow, and it was put in a project and nobody knows how it worked because it used really hard things from the special frameworks. This is very bad practice. So if you're writing something, try to understand what's happening here, write your documentation, and when you come back to this, you will be happy because you will receive the help for yourself and for the person who will work after you on this project. And the second solution is to avoid difficult methods for similar operations. For example, in my practice, I have a button in the application which performs only one click. And this operation in my application took almost 1 minute to be done. When I opened the code, I saw 3 lambdas, 2 lists, and 4 waits. That's why it was taking so long. And what was done? I've added one method to scroll to verify element exists and to be sure that it's here, and click. The result 5 seconds on operation, almost minute saved, and no false fails in 6 months. Try not to be to make the code too complicated. Be easier in the cases when it needs, because in some cases it's good to use fast and suitable methods. The second and the third and the fourth, the next thing which I want to discuss is not working over improving the application. It's weak work over improving testability. Automation QA engineers frequently watch a test project as on complete scene. When automation is performed, they use only selectors which are provided by default. This is very poor practice, especially in long-term projects. We shouldn't forget that quality assurance covers all processes which lead to quality improvements. Which solution I want to provide based on my experience, of course, you can have other. In Agile projects, communication is the key of success. I haven't seen successful projects where communication was bad. So now, how automation QA should look at the app? We need to understand that everything could be changed and everything could be discussed in the product which you are testing. When I look at the poor structure of available elements, I need to ask myself, if there is a way to make the process better? If there is only way for me to use slow structural selector, should I ask the developer to add the unique IDs? You need to fill your project and try to save as much effort as you can. So why have we talked about communications before? The reason is simple. If you see the way to improve the application, you need to contact management or developers. You need to be a part of a project, of a team. So if I see any improvement, I'm asking the responsible person to find the solution to improve testability. Don't forget to work over this. This is very important in your project. Of course, if it's a long-term project. The next thing is working over manual tasks. I think the issue is pretty clear, so let's move to solutions. I've already mentioned that the main task of automation QA is to run fast and reliable regression tests. Manual work could break your efficiency in some cases. So I recommend you to agree amount and the scope of manual work with the team. In most cases, I do not recommend to exceed
Yuri, we can't hear you right now. Sorry, we have some technical issues. Yuri, are you there? We still don't hear you, and we see that your camera quality is lower. We still don't hear you. Should we have just a little bit left. Do you want me to finish your part? All right. So sorry everyone for that. Yuri has some technical issues, but you can see all his comments in the presentation. We still don't hear you. And thanks everyone who attended. Yeah, now we do.
Yeah, and you lead our way, yes. What I missed?
you were at your last point, L,
Okay,
when we
okay,
stopped hearing you.
okay. In such case, could I finish my point and we could meet to the last part? Is it okay?
Yeah,
sorry for technical issues. I don't know what really happened because, and thank you for informing me that we have an issue. Okay, my last point was working over many manual tasks, and I recommended you not to exceed 20% of workday. And I recommend not fully avoid manual tasks, and but provide them lower priority compared to the main aim. The main aim to automate the project and provide reliable and fast tests. So this is a question which I want to discuss. Petar, if you have something to add, you could add it right now, and after this we could move to questions which we have.
I don't have anything to add. I think we can move on to the questions. And I took a look at the first question from Tamara Radic. What about projects which have already last for some time, for example, 1 year, and now we should start with automation, so it's not planned from the beginning. Code is not written with testability in mind. So in this case, what I would recommend is firstly to make a prototype of a test framework. Choose a technology you want to use, and make 1 or 2 sample test cases that you know are working. So after that, you can figure out how much time it will take for you to write one individual test case. After that, you can plan ahead and think how much time will it cost to automate all the possible test cases. For example, if you have 200, 300 test cases, it can be a lot of time, but you can also prioritize and just automate the most commonly executed tests. For example, your regression suite or some sanity tests. So in that case, you can still plan ahead, but as Yuri said, you can also work, if the project is still in development, you can also work on improving the testability of the project with devs by having them include some locators for your UI tests, or some, for example, some helpful APIs for the backend tests, anything like that. As an Agile project, if you're working in such, it should be easy to adjust and to fit some of those tasks into the backlog, because it will have some long-term solutions. Yuri, would you like to answer the second question, because it was about something you said?
Yeah, the second question is fully related to me, and it was asked by Rami, but I want to add to the first question some points.
Yeah, sure.
We are met with such situation very frequently. When I thought about that, it's good to start from beginning, and Petar told about this idea. Is perfect, is great. We talked about the idea of using automation in Agile processes, and it's really bigger than happen in real life. So in real life, many of clients come to us with a working project which is already released to the shop, or everything. It could be on every stage, and they ask us, can we perform automation? And of course we can. What we talking about? We're talking about the product, and after this we selecting the technologies, as Petar mentioned, and try to be sure that the test cases are great and could be suitable and could be automated. So in such case, the main base of automation project is how the project, which resources the projects already have. And in many cases, when it has many resources, there is no issues to automate working process. But the next question, which was asked by Rami, thank you for a question, of course. why updating the framework dependencies is not recommended. I'm other way around, and I tend to update everything. Yeah, I didn't mention that it's not recommended. It's recommended, but in some cases. The case when we need to update is when we have some problem or the update is required by our project. The main problem which we could meet, I'm talking about this, you asked why. I'm talking about this because in my practice, in my experience, I saw the cases when we change it, we updated dependency, we updated version. Of course, we have a list of dependencies with Maven or something like this. And after this, in 5-10 minutes, our tests are fallen. We don't understand what is happening. We trying to understand, and the end of this, we found that there are relations between some of frameworks, and there are issues with the driver, the issues with the South Labs or some service which we're working on, AVS or something like this. So why I've talked about this? I've talked about the case when everything works, not to change. But if you feel that you could update, you of course you should try and bring new dependencies in your project. Sometimes they bring great possibilities for you and fix many issues. So my recommendation, to be sure that the change is needed. And Petar, would you like something to add to this question? And we could move to the next one.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think I can answer the next one from Evgeny's. I'm just starting my automation career. What is the best ways to get experience in it? Well, I suppose Yuri, you also started as a manual QA and later moved on to automation. The best thing to do to start your career is just by working. Of course, there are a lot of reading materials and lectures you can attend, but practice makes perfect, as they say. So I think even if you're working on a manual project, perhaps you can, in your free time, you can try to do some automation on the side, or perhaps talk to the project manager if you can fit some automation work in the sprint backlog, for example, so that it can be useful to the team. And if you're not currently working but want to get some knowledge and get some skills, you can work at home. You can, for example, pick your favorite website and begin writing test cases for it, begin automating it, choose a technology that can suit you. There are a lot of materials online on different technologies that can be used. So my answer, the general answer here is by practice. And every question you have during this experience, you can find in the process. What do you think, Yuri?
Yeah, everybody who listens to us and who works as automation quality assurance engineer started from something. We have a mentor system in our company, and I'm mentor for some students, for the beginners who come to me. And the first thing which I want to tell them that automation is not so hard work. Yes, it requires special skills and different base of knowledge, but this activity isn't rocket science or something like this. Just practice, as mentioned Petar, could lead you to the result. What you need to understand what exactly you want to do. there are too much tools and test platforms where you could have a practice. You could receive any information or something like this. But the first thing you need to ask, what really you want to do? Because many of people who are thinking about automation and they are manual QAs, they don't understand what exactly automation do. And this is the part where I want to work, but I don't understand what to do. So please start. Select any project, select Gmail or something like this. Try to log in, log out, use WebDriver. After this, try to any framework on your home PC even. It's not a big problem with a cable to use Android or iOS device to make tests. This will take 1-2 days from you to set up and to work. And after this, you will understand how it works. After this, take any good examples, patterns, and run language on a base level and a core level. So you need to be great in syntax and the core. There is no need to make very deep knowledge of a language, because when you met with the situation when you need to do something, you will learn only the elements which are required for testing. Also on the internet, you can find some tutorials for learning the language for testing. I recommend you to find such courses, such materials. This will bring you and it will show the list of things you need to know. That's my thing. And one thing which was added by Rami regarding previous question which we discussed, Rami tells that in the case you ignore minor updates, and then you will be delayed the updates until new major releases, then you might have real big problems. So Rami recommends us here to update the projects every time we have possibility to update. This position is good too, but we will meet with these problems anyway, and I cannot tell that I disagree, but on my practice, I'm trying not to do so. If you have other experience, this is good thing, and updating your project is a good idea anyway, but I still don't recommend to make this without aim just for updating, because I don't think it's a good practice for me. But Rami, if you think that in your experience bring you the idea that it's great, I will be agree with you in such question. And the last thing, how important are certificates? I'm going to learn all I need. If I take ISTQB, for example, do you have courses that you are recommending, Nestor? Thank you, Nestor, for a question. Petar, would you like to ask this question?
Yeah, of course. So ISTQB is a very good certificate to have. I think there are 3 levels: foundation, advanced, and full. And from the foundation level, you'll learn a lot of basic
we cannot hear you.
Basic common practices and terminology for. Sorry,
It seems a kind of problems right now. We lost connection. Okay. I will lead this question. ISTQB certification is a great thing, but you don't need to rely on it as a one hope. It's only the thing which should be added to your practice, and this thing could make your knowledge systematic. I'm talking about this in a very interesting thing because on Friday I will get the exam about advanced level in ISTQB certification. So this question is asked really in my experience, in my current experience, and I could tell you that even preparation, you don't need to get this certificate. Just prepare for at least foundation level and your knowledge will be much more systematic. It, in many cases, won't bring you some financial or other stuff to your life, but it will bring your knowledge to the new level, and you will see the question which previously weren't in your head. You even didn't think that this question could be possible for you and could be the problem. Okay, Petar, you come back to us. Yeah, we hear you.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
sorry.
want to add something about STQB certification, we could make it.
Yeah, I think it's a good starting point, but as we mentioned earlier, practice is the most important thing. And STQB can give you a good foundation of knowledge. There is also an automation part, so it can help you with that. But as every different company uses different technologies, you can't learn everything from just a course. So it's best to just work at it. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, Petar, we have, I think, the last question which should be discussed. The question was sent by Anna. She told us, hi, I think the main problem to start career in the every company is that every company wants the candidate to have experience, but how to get it when nobody wants people without experience? Yeah, the question which everybody heard and feel.
We have had requests from clients for people with 10 years of experience with the technology, and the technology was out 5 years ago, for example. So I believe sometimes the requirements are intentionally made unrealistic so that the people with less experience won't even try. But I think if you are determined that you want to work in this area and you learned a lot, practice a lot at home, even without any working experience, and during the interview you talk about how much you've learned and how enthusiastic you are about doing this, then I think you can succeed even with minimal experience.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, but I need to add that many companies would like to have the newbies and the juniors in their team, so just look for them and search. As an example, our company brings free webinars for manual teams and previously for automation candidates, so you could just finish such webinar. It was free and you could receive job offer as a junior of automation quality assurance. My way was lead from such course for manual team, and after this we discussed with management at one of the moment of my career, and we discussed that it would be great to learn automation, and company brought me a mentor. So when I worked as a manual QA, I received a mentor who helped me in some questions and provided me his experience. So I don't think there's a big problem that nobody wants the people without experience. The biggest problem that we didn't ask about such things. So try to understand what you want, ask about this, and this won't be a problem for you. So thanks, Anna, for the question. And okay, I think we're out of time. So I want to thank you for attention, for everything which we discussed today, for your time, for you being here, for questions, for our company, for this moment. It was really good for us. Thank you, Petar, for sharing useful guides and hints. It was very interesting to participate in conversation with you. And thanks again to everyone who listened and joined this webinar. I bring on the screen the contacts, and I want to give a word to Petar.
Yeah, thank you, Yuri, and thanks your company QATestLab for organizing this webinar. This was my first experience as a presenter, so it was very intriguing for me. And I'm sorry to all the listeners for the technical difficulties, but I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you found some useful insights from us. And thank you, and I hope we'll see each other again sometimes on a different topic.
Thank you, Petar, very much. I think you've done it great as for the first time, and technical problems weren't the issue which lost our emotions from the meeting. So at this moment, I will be happy to see you again, and I want to say bye to everyone. Goodbye.